Welcome to Eden Equips, the podcast that shares real life stories, practical tools to help parents, carers, educators feel equipped for the journey of raising and supporting neurodivergent children and young people. Whether you are tuning in today, sat still with a cup of coffee, or you're in the car, or you do have a gifted, quiet moment, I'm really, really glad you're here. Today we're joined by Alma White, an actual powerhouse of an individual, someone I feel truly inspired by every time we speak with her. Last time we went for coffee, I came back, I felt like my soul was vibrating in excitement of just feeling truly alive after speaking to her. It's really hard not to catch the fiery passion that Alma has. Alma fronts the campaign Caleb's Cause, a campaign that fights for the rights of young people and disabled young people to receive education and support beyond the age of 19 here in Northern Ireland. Alma will hate that I'm telling you this, but it's very important to share. Won the Changemaker Award in 2025 in London, recognising her fight and advocacy for young people. In her TED Talk, that's right, in her TED Talk, Alma shared how we all deserve to be seen, heard and included, and to quote her son Caleb directly, speaking in Stormont, "My friends and I, along with others, want to be seen, heard and included in your world." Alma's been on countless radio shows, ITV News and many other outlets fighting for the rights of post-19 provision for young people with complex needs. So buckle up as we are going to get into it and talking, because after you listen to this, you'll be ready to fight with Alma for this change. Alma, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
I know there's so much we could get into today, but I really want to get right into it. Mm-hmm. And I think a really good place to start is who are you and what is Caleb's Cause?
Okay, so I'm Alma White. I am mum to 17-year-old Caleb, who actually will be 18 in 2 weeks, which is a scary jump.
Big scary jump.
I have been, I've worked in special education for years, both in mainstream and special school. Mm-hmm. So this has been my passion. I think that when Caleb was born and he was put in my arms, there was just an instant feeling of, yeah, this is my boy. Mm. As much as we are with all our children. Yeah. But my passion is really to see young people with disabilities having a place in society. I don't think that we're there yet. And my goal is to make sure that they have an equitable future and do all I can to make that happen. So that's how Caleb's Cause came about.
Okay.
From passion and fight and doing what I feel is right.
Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about post-19. Mm-hmm. So what happens after, basically? And, just even looking in and reading all of your stuff and following it along for a while now, in Northern Ireland, there's no legislation. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Or provision and support for children and young people post-19.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about that. That sounds wild when you say it out loud, doesn't it?
It really is.
And obviously, you know that, you're living it, you see that, but what's going on there?
So basically, it's funny. Well, it's not so funny, but I have a nephew in England who is now 24. Mm-hmm. And when we were looking at the provision in the UK, I started to go, Caleb's coming up to 16. We're going to have all this. And then I quickly started doing research and realised this doesn't actually exist. So in England, they have the Children and Families Act and the Care Act 2014.
2014, yeah.
We have... No. There's your answer.
Wow.
We have one... the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act, Northern Ireland, 1978.
I'll go way off.
Yeah.
1978.
And that pertains to a lot of complex needs and housing and care and so
a lot's changed since 1978, I would say. Just a wee bit.
I don't even know if autism was recognised then.
Probably not over here.
So we're a little bit behind. So we're decades behind.
Decades and
other jurisdictions like Wales and England.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess then what is that you're fighting for? So the post legislation, what are you fighting? What are you asking for that to be for post-19 young people?
What I would like to see, so I think I've done a lot of work in this space, A Future for All. So whether it's coming out of mainstream, SEN, post-16, post-19. Last June, Keith Archibald, Department of Economy, announced that they were going to do some work in that space.
Right.
There was going to be a portion of young people that would be legislated for. Unfortunately, it became very apparent that it doesn't go far enough, that young people coming out of special school who don't have entry-level qualifications don't have access to what's been offered. So it's left a gap for post-19. So young people coming out of special school, if you can get a day centre, great. It's very reliant on our wonderful charities who try and fill the gap. Unfortunately, you've seen the recent cuts, the 64%.
Huge.
That's going to have a massive impact on families, Caleb's Cause families. So what we do have, we're now left with no legislation and even more cuts.
And massive cuts in those areas.
The people that, I'm very much behind the charities, because I believe if the government can't provide the provision, let the ones who can, who are able to do it, give the funding to
give the funding
charities.
to them to do it. Yeah. So you're seeing like this huge impact that's happening. And I know a big part of your story obviously has come from a place of, personal and Caleb, but you also meet and work with all these families too. So, we've talked about this in other podcasts, the importance of people, not just statistics. So what impact are you seeing that have on families? Like, what does that look like for families?
Families are in crisis. I think one of the biggest things post-19, there is no data. No data exists for post-19. So if you were to go and pop Caleb's name in to a system at 19, there would be nothing there. In England, there's a system.
Okay.
So there is no one department responsible for post-19 send.
Right.
So in the government right now, it is a very complex cross-departmental issue. 6 departments. We're talking education, health, economy, infrastructure for travel, justice for controllership, wills, finances, communities for benefits. So none of those departments connect, which means that then where do our young people go at 19? If you're fortunate enough to get a placement somewhere, yes, there's the cliff edge. You might get 1 or 2 days. It used to be a 5-day provision. The cuts have now cut everything down.
One if you're lucky kind of thing.
If you're fortunate enough to get a place in a tech situation, if you're able to access the support, at 22, there's another cliff edge where there's no link to employment. So at the moment, there's 19-year-olds across the country sitting at home with nothing.
And I think I want to make this really clear as well, because like people know me and Alma, I know you, like you're driven by this in terms of like hope for our young people. But this situation's horrific at the minute. Like
Absolutely
it's
horrific.
Actually, and I don't think you can or should like flower that up in any way or dress it up, that for post-19 provision, especially for young people with complex needs, high level support needs, there's nothing.
There's very little.
Very little. So yes, the charity, then
problem.
the cuts. Yeah.
Even the charities and what they offer, they do their best. They're not getting the funding. So if you have a young person who needs one-on-one,
the funding's not there maybe for that.
Automatically, tech is out.
Yeah.
If you need one-on-one in a day opportunity, the trusts do not double fund.
Yeah.
That means they're not going to fund for a one-on-one and for a placement. So where does that leave you? And why is this not being addressed?
And I think that's the thing of like, when we say like there's nothing, that you've really made that very clear. There's charities are really trying really hard to fill the gaps. You've talked to a lot of them. I know a lot of them. But if then they are being like basically their hands being tied by funding, what then happens? And a lot of your speeches or like in your TED talk as well, and you've mentioned it a few times there, the cliff edge. I think that's a really interesting way to talk about it. It's because it rightfully creates, like even when I was listening to some of those things, I was like, my tummy felt it. Like if you're jumping off a cliff, it's a horrible sensation.
You're left.
And, it it kind of blows my mind a little bit that then we're still sat here in terms of like we're having to fight for this and not someone being like, oh yeah, we should probably do something about that actually, like in government of changing it.
You know, one of the things I would point out too, and where it should start, is that 14 to 19 framework.
Okay.
Education transitions are not being done properly.
Yeah. Okay.
It has been flagged. There are 10 transition officers for the country. That's 1 to every 900 students. How on earth do you meet the needs? Okay. And then you have the demographic that are coming through special school right now are more and more complex.
They are, yeah.
Because you're not getting support down the younger years. So it's having an effect. But all this early intervention, yes, I'm for it. Mm-hmm. But what happens out the other side?
Right.
So there's got to be a journey. There's no guidance. There's no pathway. There's no roadmap. Parents haven't a clue that a statement of special educational needs ends at 19 and there's no legal obligation on the government.
I was thrown by that because, like, again, most people know, like, my teaching career was in England. Well, primarily I did here a little bit, but mine was primarily in England. Mm-hmm. And I taught Key Stage 4. So there was a stage in their statement, and then that changed in their HCP from that age group originally to the then 18 to 25 bracket.
Yeah.
And that then, as you were talking about, those provisions that then came in from that new bracket of transition. Yeah. And like, I remember just taking that so for granted because like that was just what happened. It was just, I filled out as their teacher, various paperwork, went to a few meetings. There you go. It's all changed. We're ready to go into this next kind of framework in stage and transition stage. Yeah. But then for that not to exist.
Yeah. It's you know, when you look at England, my nephew, for example, he has a plan. He has a 27-page Care Act assessment plan, which talks about every need. It's broken down into all areas. And he has a multidisciplinary team that are involved with him. Now, is it perfect in England?
No.
But is there a system? Absolutely.
Yeah, there's something being done.
There are people, you know, my fear, we're getting to the crisis, there's very few residential care options. There's no respite, very little respite.
Yeah.
There are families, we're over 80 families in beyond crisis that are not getting those needs met. Okay. You've got medical needs. Mm-hmm. A Future for All is, for me and our campaign, it's all disabilities. And it's this feeling of kicking the can down the road. It just makes me quite angry because I am coming to Stormont with solutions. I am bringing it and saying, this is what needs to happen. And how do you think, if you cannot meet the numbers that are coming out of special school today, how are you going to meet them in 5 and 10 years' time?
Right, because it's growing, and then we're needing to look at that. I think if I'm listening to this for the first time, which, you know, we've talked about this a lot, but if I am, like, even here sitting, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, and if I'm listening to this and I'm getting fired up and I'm like, right, well, that's not great. What can I do about it? How can I join in this campaign? Practically, is there anything I can do?
Yeah, I think, you know, I would say for parents, for educators, classroom assistants, everyone, you know, grannies, aunts, uncles, follow our campaign, share our posts. Caleb's Cause. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Knew nothing about it. I'm all about it now. I have, you know, our page on Facebook has completely exploded. It's well over 4,000. We have a petition which has over 12,500 signatures on it. Come to our events. Stand with us outside Stormont. But contact your MLAs.
Okay.
Tell them about Caleb's Cause. When people knock on your door at election time, ask them the hard questions. What are you doing for Caleb's Cause? Is it in your manifesto? Are you going to commit to this? It's in the programme for government post-19.
Yes, so they'll be able to go and say, like, so what are you doing about this?
What are you doing?
And I think, again, if people are listening to this and be like, yeah, but, you know, and Caleb and did it, but it's you've called it Caleb's Cause because that's your heart of, like, there he
that's
is,
my inspiration.
Right? There's your inspiration. But if you go to your events, there are all those other young people who also have those stories, who also are sitting in situations where the cliff edge is coming or they're off the edge already. And so it's, if you are a parent or carer, you know, this is 10 years time. And so start I guess doing what you're doing, like, you know, knocking the doors, asking the questions, writing to your MLAs, stirring that up a wee bit. Is that kind of what I'm looking at?
Yeah, and one thing I would say is a lot of parents, and I know they're exhausted, and it is exhausting.
And you're living that.
I'm exhausted.
Yep.
I work a full-time job. I do this. I do it because I'm passionate about
you're
it.
A parent of multiple kids.
Yes.
Yep.
I've got other children. Yeah. But the younger your kids are, there needs to be an understanding that your kids are going to grow up very quickly and they're going to be in this position.
Right.
And I need the younger, parents of the younger kids to support us as well. Okay. That's really, really key.
Yeah, that's good to know, actually, because if I'm and again, like, I think this was something I really learned from teaching Key Stage 1 to 4, like, doing that jump. I was like, oh gosh, that happens quick. Yeah. And I felt like, I remember when I was teaching my Key Stage 4s, I felt like there was this clock over their head. Now, again, in England, that was also, there was support there post, but I felt like there was a ticking clock. Whereas when I was working with my 7-year-olds, I'm like, hey, life, you've so long in this school. Like, but as you said, like, we all know that as parents, you blink and there's, that changes. So yeah, if you're a parent, it's that. And I know, Alma, you're not coming from a place of like fear and scaremongering. No. You're coming from a place of being like, reality, and this really matters.
And parents have a right to know what's coming. Parents have a right to support.
Key. Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but it is bleak. And I think as parents, we need to stand together on this, because I'm one person, but I need everybody behind it. Because it is wrong. And our young people are being failed, and it's going to continue.
Yeah. And I think until that change happens as well. And I think, so if I'm listening, I can get behind it, I can share, I can start asking those questions no matter where I'm at on the journey, just like rattling the cage a little bit. Absolutely. So that, and I know that for you, there is that feeling of like hope for change. Like, that's why you're doing it. If you didn't have hope for it, you probably wouldn't be looking at that. And again, I think even just to highlight some other stuff that you've said that I really love. In your TED Talk, Alma, you talked about that we mustn't assume there's only one way to have a conversation. What did you mean by that?
So Caleb doesn't really have two-way conversation. He can read, but he really struggles with communication. And one of the examples in my TED Talk, Caleb was only, I think he was about 2. And I was sitting out in the garden. We lived in America at the time, and my other daughter was playing on the slide with her doll, and I had a newborn asleep, and he normally would go in the sand and he would just play, and you'd never really hear a word, but he was happy as Larry. And I closed my eyes for 2 minutes and opened them, and he was standing in front of me with a daisy. And he just put his, he outstretched his hand and he gave me the daisy, and he looked me right in the eyes, which is very difficult for Caleb to do. And in that moment, I thought, that's him saying, Mom, I love you.
Communicating with me.
Right. And that's called communication, and that's having a conversation. So you don't need words always, but don't assume that our young people, our children with disabilities can't have a conversation.
Yeah, that's what I think
we need to start
really
including them. Yeah.
Right, and that's exactly what I see you doing beautifully in Caleb's Cause and that campaign. Is including, like, if you go onto Alma's Facebook or any of the social media, you will see examples of that, of various young people using whatever way they communicate to communicate about what they're currently feeling and what they experience and all of those things as well within that. I guess I'd love to know, and I know like timings and things, so things will change when people are probably listening to this. But if I'm listening, so you've given me a bit of a background, what's kind of not there. What are some of the recent updates? Can you give us of like conversations and fighting? I'm laughing because I know there's a recent updates, but like conversations that you're fighting currently up in Stormont. What are some of those?
Constant fight. I think you spend your time educating firstly to say, post-19, what does it mean? What's the impact? The impact is huge. It's not just for Caleb, it's for all young people across Northern Ireland. It's the cradle to the grave. You're talking about elderly people still having to care in their 80s for their 40-year-old sons and daughters with no support. You're talking about people fighting to get a social worker. You're talking about people being locked away and isolated in their homes because they can't get out. It's a much bigger impact. And I think one of the things with Caleb's Cause is to have cross-departmental collaboration, which we all talk about. We're done with the silos. We need legislation. And no matter what way you dress it up,
that's what needs
it will never be forced to happen without
unless
laws.
Legislation is there.
And this is what they need to understand and acknowledge that we are in crisis and that this needs to be done. And it can be done. That legislation can be amended. It's their choice.
And I am hoping that we listen back to this in a year's time, less than.
Yeah.
And celebrate that it has been.
So. It's been a year and a half.
It has been a year and a half of a lot of fighting. And I think even just to encourage parents who maybe feel really alone in this journey, parents or carers at time, they're like, no one talks about this. No, like, let me listen to this and hear that Alma is there fighting, and that I know is such a big heartbeat of yours, is that you, when you're like, and I know I was like, when I was writing that, I was like, she's gonna kill me for saying about that award, but I think that's so important, because Alma is not someone who will say, hi, I'm a white change maker, but that would be your worst nightmare, because at your heart is all these families. It's the young people. You always say that this is not about me.
Absolutely.
This is about the families and the young people. I'll happily be the one having those conversations and having the difficult conversations and being the rightfully just as confrontational in those moments. But at your heartbeat of every conversation is all those family. Like, if you're listening to this, like that's who you're fighting for. Yeah.
And I think, just to be, when I think about this and I was nominated for that award, and I was a little bit like, don't like the limelight. I took this on because I believe in it. I'm passionate about our young people, and it never has been about me. I think I thought about that award and I said, I'll accept it, but I will only accept it on behalf of our young people and their families, because the real change makers are our young people, because they're the best of society. And that's who I fight for. And I think there's no agenda there. I'm doing this because I genuinely want to see change, and I want to help families who are desperately hurting.
Right.
Yeah.
That comes kind of really nicely into, as we land here, that you have journeyed so much to get to this point, Alma, both professionally and personally, and you're now someone who's actively fighting for change in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I know there's been huge setbacks, trials, disappointments in that journey, but I also know that you do remain hopeful.
Yeah.
I know you do. You actually truly believe that this change is going to happen. What would you say is the ultimate hope there for Caleb's cause and young people in Northern Ireland? And how, if I'm a parent, do I stay hopeful?
Do you know what? You've always got hope, no matter what, and you have to have hope, because what's the alternative?
Right.
And hope comes in so many ways. And sometimes, I wake up and I think, oh, I'm just going to give up. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to be laughed at or storming. And then you get a little glimmer of hope, and someone shares something, or you get an opportunity to speak, and you're going, yeah, I'm meant to do this.
Okay.
I think, for parents, the hope is in each other. So one thing with Caleb's cause that I think has been really, really powerful is the community of parents that have come together, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with each other. Right. We may not have the time to gather up outside Storm because we're all carers, but we are, through the internet, building a community of hope, because we're saying we stand together on this and we've had enough. I was thinking back to when Caleb was younger, and I was like, what would I say to people now? Find your people. Find your people. Good. Because I have my people, and I know that there are days where, whether it's family and a few very close friends who I can go to and go, can I have a rant, or can I have a cry, or people that understand and know what it's like to be where you're at. Find your people, because the hope is very much with each other and coming together, and we can do it together. It's going to take time. Yeah. Northern Ireland is, everything's slow. But hope comes, and hope comes in the way that our young people teach us. And I think of Caleb and all the young people I've worked with over the years. They've changed my life. Yeah. How could I not step forward and want to say, you're missing out?
Yeah. Exactly.
You are missing out not having them in society, because they
and being part of
are the real change makers.
Yeah. That's so good, Alma. And like, again, so encouraging, I think, for people to hear. It's so important for people to hear that there are people fighting, but there's also, you know, there's stuff we've got to really fight for here.
Absolutely.
And I love that, coming together. You know, one of my favorite quotes is that, you know, if we, like, each of us casting a stone will make like that ripple of change, you know, and how important that is. Because sometimes I think in my journey personally, I felt really overwhelmed by, I'm like, how am I going to do this? Like, there's so much support that needs done. There's so much. But if in my head, how I imagine it is that there's like thousands of people standing around the lake, not just me throwing in random stones. It's like all these people, and then the tidal wave of change comes, because we're all in it. So I think, again, I think that's a good place then to come in to close. You know, join Caleb's cause, share things, petition, come to events if you can. All of those things are how you're helping cause the tidal waves of change that we will, and we are remaining hopeful. And I'm with you, Alma, on that things will change for this country and ultimately for our young people. And back to what, you know, Caleb had said, you know, about him being him and his friends, to be part of this world, and that he has a right to be able to be part. And as you said, everyone else is missing out. They're massively missing out. Listen, we land this with a game of quick equip, a tool or resource that you love.
Oh, I would say, do you know what the people I've learned the most from are other parents? Conversations.
It's a good resource.
Lived experience.
Lived experience. A mindset helps you.
Hope.
That hope that we just talked about, remaining hopeful.
Resilience.
You've got a lot of, Alma.
You have to.
Big thing I respect you for. And I guess you kind of talked about this already, but a piece of advice that you would share. If I was sitting in front of you as a parent at the very beginning of this journey, I'm sitting with my 4-year-old. What's your advice to me?
Don't give up. Never give up. And again, you know, when I said find your people, find the people that you know will support you, and don't be afraid to. It's very easy when your life behind closed doors, you feel like people don't understand. Tell people what it's like and let them support you. There's a quote that fits in really well with this. Helen Keller, you know, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And that for me is exactly what Caleb's Cause is all about.
Super. Alma, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's the start of a bigger conversation. And again, I encourage you, you know, we'll add the links and all the stuff with the podcast and share and everything for people to kind of join this journey, and we're behind you. Really are, even if just to publicly say that, like, even consultancy and me, like, we're behind you in this, and we really will stand with you and fight with you as we fight for a lot of other families as well in this. I know that people listening today, I hope that you have found useful information, but actually for this podcast, I hope that you have really something has set a light in you, and that you say, do you know what, I'm going to push this, because as you said, change together. So come along to those events, and you know, we'll be knocking on the doors and rattling the cages, and that's how that's going to start to change, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time, Alma. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.